By the way, everybody, we is live.
By the way, everybody, we is Let's start this one off a little bit different. See that? Why so dark? Black Sabbath. That's why. What were we thinking of in a heavy metal world on the weekend of July 4th and 5th, 2025? We're talking Black friggin' Sabbath. But for right now, let's get a little light on the subject, shall we? This is what I'm talking about. And what is this, you ask? I will tell you, I will show you. This is a Tony Iommi Black Sabbath guitar. Let's get into it. Except to say, I know this is called sparkling water, and we's are going to have a drink to Black Sabbath, yes to Ozzy Osbourne, and Bill Ward and Geezer Butler, but today in particular to Tony Iommi, and I'm going to talk about him in just a moment. So let's... love that sound. And now, down the hatch.
So, why Tony Iommi? Well, why not Tony Iommi? let's talk a little bit about the tone stir, if we may. First of all, I've always loved the guy. I've loved him all the way through, going back to the 70s when Black Sabbath were new to everybody. And you hear those old Black Sabbath albums, and this guy, he was already very talented by the late 60s. Before the first album came out, he was already a badass.
This stuff has a kick.
Anyway, as the years rolled by, you know, and Ozzy went out on his solo career and became extremely successful, exceedingly successful, Tony Iommi kept with Black Sabbath, and he went through Dio and Glenn Hughes and Tony Martin and other things that he was involved with and so forth. And while I was waiting for this guitar to arrive, I was looking at some Tony Iommi solos on YouTube and also some interviews with the Riffmeister himself. And, excuse me, he comes across as a very polite and gentle, easygoing fellow. You know, I don't think rage when I think Tony Iommi. I think a guy who, kind of like David Gilmour, just stands there and does his thing and lets the music do the talking. You know, other people prance around the stage and they do all this stuff. I'm guilty of it. If you go look at my old Carl Vama videos, I'm like doing all this stuff. And now, as an old geezer myself, I look back and say, what were you doing? Just play the music and let the music speak for itself. So that's a lesson that I learned in life, and in part, I learned that from David Gilmour and Tony Iommi, who is just a very, very talented, impressive player. He can play the blues, he can play hard rock, a little bit of Spanish guitar, a lot of different styles. He's versatile, he's kind-hearted, easygoing, kind of mellow. You know, not every memory of Black Sabbath is necessarily a mellow memory, but he packs the punch. He's an impressive guy, and he's up there now with the guitar heroes of me personally. You know, all of us rock and roll people, we have our guitar heroes because we grew up in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and that's when guitar heroes, especially in the 70s, were at their peak. And I've got my guitar heroes. Robin Trower comes to mind. Jimmy Page comes to mind. Certain elements of Pete Townsend I really appreciate and admire. Ace Frehley, I'm an Ace Frehley fan. But Tony Iommi has really, because I've been focusing on him lately, he's coming to the forefront, and I'm realizing, hey, you know, this guy is more interesting than I realized and more talented than I realized. And so it's been kind of a renaissance for me when it comes to Black Sabbath. You know, because of this past weekend, the internet's been buzzing with Black Sabbath like crazy. And by the way, let me just say this because we're talking about the internet buzzing with Black Sabbath. My own contribution to the interest in Black Sabbath, with special regard to this past weekend, is on my channel, on this channel, I put together the original movie called Black Sabbath from 1963, from which the band got their name. It's a famous story, but they saw a poster for this movie called Black Sabbath, and they were looking for a name to call their band because Earth wasn't cutting it. And they settled in on naming the band after the movie Black Sabbath. So I did this all in one day. I just took the movie Black Sabbath and took out the audio on the film, made it a silent movie, and then put in Black Sabbath music for the whole film. So as you're watching the movie, it's all of the first album, all of the second album, and then it goes into Master of Reality, and you've got Sweet Leaf, and it fades out during After Forever, which is interesting because right as it's fading out, Ozzy's saying, you know, he thinks it's sad that the only voice that was heard was the only one. Wait a minute. You know that line? I think it's real sad when the only voice heard. There was only one voice heard, something like that. But he's talking about God. He's talking about Jesus. You know, and After Forever is a famous, world famous Christian rock song that has garnered a lot of interest over the years, and it's still, I mean, it's still right up there, to my way of thinking, with many of the others. Blah, 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 blah. Let's get to the guitar, okay?
Blah, 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 blah. Let's get to the guitar, okay?
Move this over here. All right. I checked the return address, and this guitar came from Fontaine, is that how you pronounce it? Fontaine, California? Fontana, California. So that's what we're looking at here. And I know that this is not the first guitar that I had sent to me that was sent out from Fontana, because I remember saying, hey, I don't exactly understand where Fontana is. Probably somewhere near LA. That's what I keep noticing. A lot of these places come from somewhere near LA. So, let's see what we have here. Tony Iommi opening up the coffin to a Tony Iommi. Oh, it's upside down? Oh no, there's a sheet in here. Okay. Yes. 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 Okay. I was wanting to make sure earlier today, I was saying, you know, I hope they didn't send me a left-handed guitar, but this does not look like a left-handed guitar. It looks like a right-handed guitar. Here is a guitar cable. Thank you. Some people say, oh, I never keep these things. I just throw them out. I save them. Because when it shorts out and I need a new one, even if it's just temporary, these are good things to have laying around. Is there an Allen wrench? Yes. Allen wrench and guitar cable. And here we go. Here we go. Nothing else in here. All right. This is a single rubber band, and I already saw the tag over the logo, and it says Vicers, V-I-C-E-R-S, and the very first Les Paul that I got from Temu, that was Chibson, it said Vicers on it. Well, here we go. It says Vicers again. Tony Iommi on the headstock, his signature. And on some of these, I saw where it was also on the truss rod cover. And I'm glad it's not on the truss rod cover for this guitar, which so far is looking real good. Let's get this out of here. That's some of the plastic that's rolled back. the plastic covering on the pick guard. All right. All right. Very nice. You can see the cross inlays, and they're kind of big up here, and that's what I was hoping. I was hoping they'd be kind of big up there. And surprisingly, it weighs less than what I thought it would. And I'm completely okay with that. Tuners. The tuners are okay. Alright, if you really want to make this a badass guitar, you've got to put on real Grovers. These say Grover, but we know they're not actual Grovers. And let me just lay this down and get the camera and show you up close what we're looking at here. See, very shiny. This type of guitar has the toggle switch down here, and so does Tony Iommi's. The big difference is Tony Iommi has a very expensive guitar, and this, I got a $40 off coupon on it, and so it was only $164 plus $11 in tax. Now there's the Tony Iommi signature, and this is where it says Vicers, and I know from personal experience it's going to say Gibson underneath it. Let me pull this off of there. See? Gibson. I expected that. These are the cross inlays. Very, very nice. I bought this guitar by accident, by the way, because I was looking at it. Let me put this over here. I was looking at the guitar on Temu, and they were talking to me about a $40 off coupon. And it said checkout, and I thought I was going to be going to the checkout page and looking to see if I was going to get the $40. I've made that mistake in the past, and when I punched checkout, the payment just went right on through, and I didn't really have a chance to think about it. Okay, here's a look at the side. And you know, these are Chibson guitars. The dots are a little low. I mean, if you want to get technical about it, the dots are a little low, but it was $176 altogether with the tax, and I didn't have to pay any extra for shipping on this. And the frets are pretty good, guys. No sharp ends at all. Just really, really nice. And let's go ahead and check these out. Yeah, the toggle is firm. And these knobs, nice and smooth. You know what? I'm going to say I think this is a pretty freaking good guitar. Really good. Very obviously a clone of Tony Iommi. He's the only one that I know of at all who's ever had the cross inlays like this. And like I said, I've been listening to more Tony Iommi, and the Black Sabbath albums that I didn't listen to when they came out, in particular the Tony Martin era, I've been checking it out. You know, I don't think it's as compelling. Tony Martin's a great vocalist, but I don't think that the presence of the music matches what Black Sabbath originally was in the 70s with Ozzy, or even with Dio, because they did a couple of albums and they did the live double album. But that's not to say the Tony Martin era is not good. It's a statement of where that band was at that time. And you know, I'm not going to consider that a bad thing. it's still interesting to check out. But I have to say, my favorite era in Black Sabbath is the Ozzy Osbourne years. I was an Ozzy fan. I'm still an Ozzy fan. I saw Ozzy Osbourne play live twice. Now, the first time was on the Diary of a Madman tour. And this was sad because Randy had just died. I missed him. I would have seen Randy Rhoads, but that plane crash happened, which no one wanted. So when I went to see the Diary of a Madman tour, and I was right down front onto the, from the audience's point of view, off to the right-hand side, and Brad Gillis was right in front of me. Ozzy was in front of me too for a moment or two when he walked over. I had a camera and I took pictures, of which I don't know for sure where they are. But anyway, Brad Gillis was right in front of me, and everybody knows what a great job he did as a fill-in. He only had a couple days to learn all the music. The guy's just a virtuoso. He's an amazing guitar player. So I saw Ozzy on Diary of a Madman. I saw him on my last day of high school in 1982 on the Bark at the Moon tour. And then I caught Black Sabbath the first time with Ian Gillan on the Born Again tour, and then later on, I think it was in 1999, in the reunion tour out on the East Coast at Continental Airlines Arena. And it was just fabulous. It was a really, really good show. So much good music, so many good memories, I should say. And now the guitar I bought by accident. By the way, this action is nice and low, and these strings, they're way out of tune. You can hear how out of tune it is, but you expect that. The action feels very comfortable. Everyone says change the strings. I'll change the strings eventually when I get to it. But all in all, what a really nice guitar. It's what I thought it would be. When I thought, I hope they don't send me a left-handed guitar, that was just a fleeting thought. That's not what I ordered when I ordered this. I ordered this guitar, a right-handed version of a Tony Iommi guitar. But Tony Iommi would not have his crosses upside down. He don't do that. Not that he doesn't do that. He don't. Tony Iommi don't do that. Nobody in Black Sabbath had an upside-down cross. Let me just say what we all know. When it came to the first album and the jacket for it, the gatefold, when you opened it up, it was the record company who put the cross upside down. The guys in Sabbath didn't even know that was going to happen. They were like, what? I can't believe you guys did that. And they had to answer for that for a long time. Like I said, I was watching those Tony Iommi interviews, and he was commenting on that the band got a lot of flack because of what the record company did with that first album cover. They wanted it to be a horror show. Ozzy used to say, look at Vincent Price, he does horror movies, but he's also a great cook. He says, we just put horror on stage and called it a rock concert. No harm done, it's just entertainment. These guys are not devil worshippers. They were never devil worshippers. As Ozzy said in a different interview that comes to mind, he says he sang about the devil on some songs, and he did. But how many horror movies that came out of Hollywood, Hammer movies or other movies from Harvard, are directly related to demons and devils? And that doesn't mean that people who acted in those movies worship Satan. Black Sabbath did never worship Satan. Jimmy Page never worshipped Satan, but he got a bad rap. And, I thought to myself a long time about the whole Jimmy Page thing, because I'm a Christian. And I'm thinking, should I be listening to Led Zeppelin? Should I be listening to Jimmy Page? He's into the occult. But he was interested in it. I read novels about the supernatural for entertainment. I watch movies that are horror movies or movies about paranormal activity. That doesn't make me an occultist, and it doesn't make me a devil worshiper. So who the hell am I to point the finger at Jimmy Page? I'm not going to do that any more than I'm going to point the finger at Ozzy or Sabbath. they had a gimmick and they ran with it and people liked it. It just like they like horror movies in Hollywood. Just like the movie Black Sabbath. So
blah, 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 blah.
as we usually say at the end of these videos, that's all, folks.
That's all, folks.